Hey guys, Sliders Prime here. And so I finally watched the Sliders panel at the Fan X convention, and I had a pretty good time watching this. It's about 40 something minutes. And so I actually learned some really interesting details about the show that I never knew about. I wish they would have went into more details about other topics on the show because they explained like a little bit here and there, but there was so much more they could have elaborated on and talked about, but sadly they did not. And it's some of those topics I really wanted to hear about, but it was so great to see these guys and wow, like they all still have their hair. I'm so jealous. Now, one of my followers said that there was two conventions. There was one in September and one in October. One in Salt Lake City, which is probably the one this one is from, that was maybe September, and then there was one in October that only had John and Clavant. And so you can still watch this on YouTube. It was uploaded a few days ago. And it was really interesting hearing them like reminisce about like the good old days, and it was really cool to see that Jerry still calls John the professor. Even though it's been like 30 years, he still calls that man that. And I know those two was extremely close on the show. He's talked about that plenty of times in the past about how John is pretty much his mentor and everything. Like he took him under his wing. And one of the reasons probably why Jerry left is because right before John left, I remember this there was an interview Jerry did years ago, and I forget, it's still on YouTube and I forget which interview it is. But Jerry pretty much said that, John told him don't let these executives and networks that control sliders like push you around and everything. And I know Jerry became a producer around or executive producer around like the fourth season, but then he left, of course, after the fourth season. Now it was speculated that Jerry left to pursue a movie career, which maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Until it comes out his mouth, then you really truly won't know. But then again, most actors don't tell the full truth, so you never really will know. But of course, Jerry did go into movies around that time, and well, we all know what happened. Like, they got rid of his brother on the show. They brought in a new like Quinn and everything. And I don't think, and this is no shade to Jerry, I don't think his movie career popped off the way he wanted it to, which most of the time that's normally what happens when a television star back in the day would go into movies. That's just how like the late 90s and like 2000s and 80s just were. Nowadays, you will have a TV star and movie star swap places all the time, and it just doesn't matter because television and movies and the entertainment world has changed so much. And you know what? I truly believe if Jerry never left Sliders, that show probably would have lasted another maybe two more seasons, maybe three at the most, and everything. Because for the most part, when he was on the show, because the fourth season, in my opinion, is a pretty good season. It's not as great as season one and two, but it's a pretty good season. They just went more the scientific route, and of course, they went more the Cro-Mag route. But I truly believe a lot of those storylines in season five probably would never have happened if Jerry was still on the show. But like, yeah, I just think that's like really cool. He still calls that man the professor still to this day. And for the most part, like they're still recognizable. They just gotten older, you know what I'm saying? And it sucks that like Sabrina couldn't be there. And it's funny that John keeps calling her Wade. and everything. But like, yeah, it sucks Sabrina couldn't be there. They say she wanted to, but she's in Europe because of some family matter situation and stuff like that. Somebody on my followers list said that I think she lives in Italy now, which yeah, like I don't think she's lived in America for over 15 years, I believe. Like I think I remember reading she moved to Africa like a long time ago, adopted a kid with her husband, and after that, she said something that was interesting around the 2020s, and so made me think she wasn't in Africa no more. And then, like, apparently now she's in Europe and stuff. And I know she's doing her art, so good for her. And I know art's a whole lot bigger in Europe than it is America. And she's a phenomenal painter and everything. And I kind of figured like, Kari wouldn't be there because she wasn't the original four. But I still would have liked to see her, because whether you hate her or not, like the woman was part of Sliders. She was there for 2.5 seasons, just like, John and Sabrina and everything. And she's very integral to like this show, you know. And so it would have been nice to see her, but it would have been nice if they would have mentioned. They didn't even mention her, which is odd. Like they mentioned Sabrina briefly, but they didn't go into no like detail about her. They just brought up her character, wanting her character to come back. But they didn't mention like Kari. They didn't mention um Charlie, who played Colin. They didn't mention the other two actors that came in season five. Like, I'm really surprised they didn't mention like none of them and stuff. And no, I don't think there's no bad blood. I don't believe. Um, 'Cause I remember this was a couple of years back. I remember Kari said really good stuff about Jerry back in the day. I don't know how she feels about him now because I just simply just don't know. Same thing with Sabrina. Like, I remember those two were following each other on Instagram. I don't pay attention to that no more, so I have no idea if they still are. And of course, Charlie and Jerry are brothers. Um, I never see him post nothing about his brother. I haven't noticed that. But I'm pretty sure they're still close because just recently, some news outlet posted pictures of Jerry's teenage daughters because they're twins and they're teenagers now. And there was a guy in the middle with them smiling and just giggling. And it wasn't Jerry. It looked like Jerry, but it was Charlie and everything. So I'm pretty sure they're still close. Now, as for the last two that joined in season five, I have no idea if they even keep in touch with any of those people, because like the only people who would know who they really are like, of course, Clavant and Kari. But even though they've never probably met each other, I mean, other TV show franchises know other people from the other series, like take Power Rangers. Pretty much every person who's been a Power Ranger knows the other Power Ranger from like another season. Same thing with like Star Trek. So many of them like know other Star Trek stars and stuff like that. But who knows, you know what I'm saying? I would have preferred it if everybody who was a main cast member could have been on the panel, but I understand why they only got like who they could and everything. Because like when it comes to sliders, this is how I want like a convention panel to be. I want them all on there. All right. I don't care if there's no bad blood or whatever. I want the entire cast from season one to season five. And I want everybody to talk about their experience and to be unfiltered. If it has to be filtered to the point of they're like, saying something really stupid they got no business talking about, or if they want to talk about politics, shut them up. Because I don't want to hear no crap like that. I just want to hear about their experiences on Sliders, which I have no idea if Sabrina and Kari have made up or not. I read one point they did, but then I don't know because they don't follow each other on social media, I don't think. And so like it might be a little dicey for them if they're in the same room in the same panel. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they put that behind themselves. Maybe they don't want to bring that up. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I just want the entire cast. I want them unfiltered, only talking about their experiences in Hollywood and only talking about their experiences on Sliders, and that is it. But like, yeah, I think it was great that like a convention is starting to recognize and appreciate Sliders. You know what I'm saying? Because the fan base is pretty niche. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's pretty small. But it was big enough to get them that second season when fans were writing into the show. But even the hardcore fans are starting to forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like this was so long ago, nobody really brings it up. I'm starting now to see more YouTube channels bring it up, which is great. Cause like one of the reasons why I created this channel was to remind people of Sliders, because I would go on YouTube and the only thing Sliders related I would find is like season 5 uploaded, which is no longer there. I would see maybe like a behind the scenes thing with the first Cro-Mag episode, which by the way, why isn't that on DVD? You think that behind the scenes thing and the information and the interviews they did with that, you would assume that would be on the DVD, but I can't find it nowhere on none of my DVDs. And like something else, oh, a couple of clips that would be uploaded, like the commercial that would be talking about, oh, there's a new show called Sliders, the intro, of course. There is still this one clip till this day that always pops up on my YouTube about Sliders. It's the one episode that starts off in the teaser, like where they're on a world run by like lawyers and everything, and they're trying to order like a burger. And then they go into like the next world. Now this happened, I think, around the time after the whole To Arturo thing. And so like, and I remember the professor acting a little arrogant in that episode and a little frustrated and stuff. It was that episode and another episode that they both up in a place like India or something like that. And like, so it was around season 2, and people always comment on this, talking about we're living in these times now. Like we didn't think we'll be like, we thought this was like fiction and everything, but we're living in these times now. And they predicted the future, stuff like that. And I've told you this before, Sliders really did predict a lot of stuff that's going on currently in America. It is insane. So yeah, this is why I started that channel, because like I never would see anything about like Sliders like on YouTube and everything. I never saw nobody talk about it. I never saw nobody review the show, give their opinions, like nothing. And so I just never wanted this show to be forgotten. And that's exactly what was starting to happen, you know? Like they would have like the reruns on television, but then they would take them off, and then a couple of years later they'll put them back on, and they'll be on a different channel. Then they just went completely off television. It would be on streaming for a point in time, then they would take it off. And of course, they take it off streaming, and that means nobody's watching it. And the reason why nobody's watching it is because most people have it on DVD, and like other people just simply never heard of it, or some people just don't like it. So sadly, the show is dwindling and stuff like that, and it's getting to the point where it's gonna be one of those forgotten great shows, you know. And you know, and that's really sad. But I am happy to see more people are talking about this on YouTube and making videos about it and like stuff like that. Because honest to God, this show should not be forgotten. It was ahead of its time. It's one of the greatest shows ever. It predicted the future so many times. You know, it is insane how they did that. And it was a show that always had an uphill battle because of one, the network. Fox will always ruin so many great shows, making airing shows out of order and everything, and not believing in the product, trying to change things around. And of course, there came that third season where it's like, a movie monster of the week made no sense. I mean, kind of it can, because, different worlds, different outcomes, but still, it just made no sense. And then they wanted to have more action and sex appeal in the show. And it was also just really cool seeing these guys like joke around with one another. It's like, it really feels like they've like haven't missed a beat. Like they constantly keep in touch, what I'm saying, like they're really good friends like off screen. And I do love seeing that when it comes to like TV stars, who starred in like a very iconic show and they keep in touch, because there are a lot of celebrities that will like fight with each other and don't talk no more, or they be like, oh, I haven't seen you in since the show, like we was on the show and everything. Like you always expecting like those Disney Channel kids to stay friends, but they don't. You know what I'm saying? So it's really great to see they still keep in touch with one another and stuff. Now, on to everybody individually and everything, and what I learned, like the really cool little details and everything, like how Clavant's twin brother, Clinton, got to be on the show. Now, I remember the creators on the DVD. If you have season 1 and 2, the combo DVD, then there's like a special like footage type stuff. And one of the creators talking about once they found out that Clavant had like a brother, a twin brother, they brought him on and everything. And they did the whole twin thing of like, you think it's just one actor playing two people, but it's two. But the way they filmed it made it seem like they're doing the split screen thing. So I always assume that they knew about him and brought him on and was like excited to have him on. But Clavant paints like a different picture and everything. One like I never knew. So they wanted Clavant to play like both characters. And he's all like, well, what's the point? I got like a twin brother and everything. And he can sing too. And they all like, man, you're lying. You ain't got no twin brother. And he's like, yes, I do. And everything. And it's like, he's like, look, man, I think he said he was like, I don't know, you can like take my paycheck or whatever or something like that if my brother like doesn't like, excite you and everything and doesn't perform the way y'all want. Like he's willing to take that risk and everything. So they brought his brother out and he like floored everybody. And that was really cool that like Clavant got his brother like on the show. You know what I'm saying? Because his brother also used to act. He was on, I think, Sanford and Son for like a recurring character, and then the main character in season 2. And then after that, he did like, guest appearances on show. But I think he stopped acting around 2008. And Clavant told like a very touching story about how like, his brother, it just made me wonder what happened to his brother, because the way he made it seem like in the convention that maybe his brother has like health problems or something like that. He said his brother is unable to like, perform anymore. He doesn't do that. And it's like, he sat him down one time and they watched like that King episode, which is one of my all-time favorites. And like he said his brother just like burst in tears when he saw his performance and everything. And it's stories like that you want to hear as a fan, you know what I'm saying? Like the things that touch you the most, because this show touches people in different kind of ways, and some people it touches them in ways I never expected. Like there used to be a Disney cartoon called Gargoyles, and to me it was just this cool epic like medieval modern day Renaissance type show. with a bunch of like monsters and people, and I didn't think much of it, just other than cool, this is a cool action show as a as a kid. But other people, when I saw like them, when I watched videos of them at the convention, they're all like, this show helped them do like hard times. They were being bullied at school. Their parents were going through divorce. They felt like an outsider, and this show made them feel like included, And it's just kind of like, I never would have thought about that. Same thing with Power Rangers. You hear like a lot of Power Ranger fans when you see them at the conventions. A lot of these people have special needs and everything. They're in wheelchairs. They're handicapped, and like they some of them are like unable to like speak properly and everything because of whatever like illness they have and stuff. And it's just kind of like, man, it's all different like walks of life in the world, and you see things differently and stuff. So for like a fan, things like hearing about like how his brother like teared up and cried when he watched his performance and everything, that really gets me. And I really enjoy seeing his brother like on the show because like he was just cool, and I can tell those two apart because they have different faces. Even though they're twins and identical, they got those different faces. And I remember his brother was there from season 1 and 2, but onward from season 3 all the way to 5, when they would bring in like a different Rembrandt, they didn't bring his brother for whatever reason. And I know Clavant, like, he reminisced about like, Robin Williams. They did do a movie together, I remember. I was looking up Clavant on Wikipedia years ago, and I think I saw him in a picture with Robin Williams. I think I saw him on one with that one dude, Rodney Dangerfield. Is that guy's name? I can't remember. I'm like, wow, when did they do that movie together and everything? And so Clavant, yeah, like the man deserves respect. You know what I'm saying? Like the man is a legend, but a lot of people don't know that and everything. Like I remember years ago, I used to always just think of him as the dude from Sliders, and because I never saw him in like nothing else at that time, and then I researched him, and yeah, he was on like Dreamgirls. He's a Tony like award winner and everything. He does Broadway. Like the man deserves respect on his name, and sadly, he doesn't get it from like the outside of the fandom and everything. And it's just like, I remember after Sliders, I saw Clavant on both Cold Case, and I saw him on Charmed. And I thought to myself, cool, he got like a really good guest appearance. Like, this is going to be a great episode. And I was disappointed in what I saw. Why? Because they only had him on there in both shows for a couple of seconds, close to a minute of runtime. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, this dude is from Sliders. This dude is a Tony Award winning like artist, and you only have him on your show for a couple of seconds to a minute. Like, I was pissed off and everything. And like, I think he stopped acting around 2012 or something. And I think he did a movie called Waitress, I believe, or maybe it's Broadway, I'm not sure, but it's something. And it was in 2024. And it always pains me to see these talented people not get much work in like Hollywood. And then they start bringing in all these reality stars, these singers, these wrestlers to do movies and TV shows. And that pisses me off. And so, like, and I remember he was reminiscing about like Bernie Mac and talking about how they talked about like growing up in like the hood and everything like that. And it always made me wonder, how did Clavant like grow up? You know what I'm saying? Because like when you watch an episode of Sliders, of course they're not their characters, but like I remember there was that one episode in season 3 where it was like the breeder, and it was stuck in like that parasite thing was stuck inside, like that symbiote was stuck inside like Maggie, and they went to that gym where it was like all these good looking people, and if like a rich person needed an organ or something like that, they would take it from like a younger person. No, what was it? Was it okay? Was it if a younger person needed an organ, they would take it from an older person, or was it an older person who needed an organ and they would take it from a younger person? It was something along those lines. But basically, everybody kept in like good shape and fitness and stuff like that. And so, um, Quinn just thought nothing about it and just like, thought about it as like, oh, it's just like the military draft. Like you have to sign up at a certain age and just do it. And Rembrandt just looked at it completely different. And he looked at it as what it was. It's oppression and everything. Like, like it's those looking down on a minority group and like getting their way and everything. And Quinn couldn't like understand that, and it's because Quinn, and Rembrandt like told him, we walked two different like paths in lives, you know what I'm saying, and that really like affected Quinn, like making him think, oh crap, like my friend thinks I'm like turning a blind eye to prejudice and everything, and so it always made me wonder how the actor grew up because like Rembrandt he didn't get much about his past life, but you can tell he grew up completely different from like the other three sliders and stuff. But they didn't touch on that because, of course, it was the 90s and stuff. And, and so hearing the story about like Bernie Mac, that was interesting. But then what was really interesting was the pilot episode when they filmed because the creator, Tracy Torme, took them to like a baseball game and he was just like joking around with Clavant, talking about you should sing the national anthem and you should do it like Rembrandt and everything. And he's like, I'm not about to do this at a baseball game with all these white people singing the way like, Rembrandt was singing. Because Rembrandt is very like 1970s, a little 1960s. He's kind of like James Brown a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like the way he performs and stuff and dresses. And he's like, there ain't no way I'm about to do that. And it being in like the 90s. Now, and there is some truth to that because there is now this whole like uproar about like the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny performing and politics has gotten involved and race has gotten involved and the government threatening to like send in ICE on him and Lord Jesus have mercy, it's like a mess. But like I get why he said what he said back in like the 90s for the national anthem and how he didn't want to perform the way Rembrandt would have performed because there's no telling how people would have reacted to that because baseball is a very like when it comes to baseball there are three main races when it comes to that. There's white, there's black, and then there's Cuban. But it's mostly in America is a very white sport. And you know what I'm saying? And he didn't want to get like, cussed out, attacked, bad fan mail, stuff like that. Now, Jerry said, man, you would have got canceled before cancel culture was even a thing. That's not how cancel culture works. It would have been more of it would have been more like an anti-woke mob going after Clavant than cancel culture and everything. Cancel culture is more like if you say or do something very offensive and then you just get canceled for it. Racism, sexual assault, stuff like that. That's cancel culture. Or saying something insensitive. Jerry should know about this because of his ex-girlfriend who was on the E channel. I forget her name. I want to say her name is Julia something, but I don't know. She had a really long neck and she used to have cancer back in the day. And she got canceled because she made a very sensitive, racist, like racial profiling statement. And she got canceled for that. And that's his ex-girlfriend. That's the one he cheated on with that Spice Girl. Remember her? So whatever her name is, I can't remember and stuff. But Clavant also touched on like, how he approached like the Rembrandt character because, Tracy Torme told him like, It's a character that was popular back in the day, but he stepped away from it, and now he's trying to like get a comeback, and nobody's gonna know who he is. And then Clavant said he saw this one singer who went through a similar thing on television, and that's like the inspiration he had for like playing that character. And it is a shame, how somebody's really famous back in the day, then times change and they try to get like a comeback, and it kind of like flops on them. And there are a lot of famous singers that are like that and everything. From back in my day of growing up, Christina Aguilera, Mariah Carey, Britney Spears and everything. They was popular back in the 90s and stuff, and then they stepped away because like they started a family, and of course Britney had that meltdown, and like when they came back, they came out with a song, and younger people just like, we don't want to listen to that. And it was only like 5 years apart from when they used to be like super famous and stuff. But that's the music business. It changes every 5 years or so. So if you step away from it, even for like, to raise the family for a few years and try to come back, people have moved on to the new stuff, you know what I'm saying? And he also touched on like, what is it? Um, like why he stayed on the show. He said he stuck around for like the fans because he knew with everybody leaving and all these new people coming in, like they needed like an anchor from the like first season, and that's why he stayed. And that's really great to do it for the fans. I'm sure the paycheck was nice too. There ain't no shame, in the money. But, that's great he did it for like the fans. Because he understood that if it wasn't for the fans, that show would have got canceled after the first season. Because it did, you know what I'm saying? It got canceled after the first season. It got canceled after the third season. And it got canceled after the fifth season. So the show just kept coming back because the fans kept campaigning for it. And the fact that he did it for the fans was just like amazing. And they also asked him, where do you see your character after like the final episode? And he's all like, does he ever think about it? He's like, nope, because he's moved on with his life, you know what I'm saying? But it was interesting of how if they was to reboot it, where he wants his character to go. He said he wants his character to be a bum, like to be on a world all by himself. Now, all by himself, I don't know if he means he's literally the only person on that planet or like he's just on a world where he doesn't have his friends. But either way, he said, he's lost it. Maybe he became an alcoholic. He's lost in like both the mind and in that world. And a couple of episodes later, his friends come back and like rescue him to slide and everything. That's a really interesting way to go about it, because think about like what all his character went through, and not everybody's gonna have a happy ending. And that's one of the things about Sliders is that it was a tragic show, like so many characters had like a ill fate to them and everything. But with all respect, that's kind of what happened to Rembrandt in season 4 premiere. Like, he slid on a world and some of his friends were there and some of them were not. Wade got taken and he was all by himself and he went crazy in the head and he was tortured and, you know, he started sliding again and we started on the PTSD from that and everything. So it's kind of been done before, but it could be like a Walking Dead kind of thing where it's kind of like, okay, Rick's normal one season and then the next season he's nuts and then the next season he's normal again and the next season he's not, you know what I'm saying? So it can always be like one of those things. So next is Jerry, and Jerry, sometimes I get the feeling he regrets leaving Sliders because like his movie career didn't turn out the way he wanted it to. He did that Kangaroo Jack movie and and then he went back to like television and then other stuff and voice acting. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Selena Gomez. She left, Wizards of Waverly Place to do her movie career, and then that didn't turn out so well, to where she went back to TV and she was able to rebound in a big way. And so, like, he mentioned how, like, his wife did a Star Trek show and he did a Star Trek show. And, when they do conventions, it's mostly like Star Trek conventions. But I think this was like the first Sliders convention that, he's done. And he was just so grateful for it. And I've known for a long time he's been wanting to, like, get back into Sliders and everything. 'Cause he said, like, whenever he was on some show on, I think, CBS or something like that, it was like a detective show. No matter what, people just brings up Sliders, and like that's it. No matter what other projects he does, they just bring up Sliders and stuff. And so I truly do believe, like, part of him probably regrets like leaving and stuff. And I know he's been trying to, get Sliders rebooted multiple times and stuff, but every time it just like there's always something legal that prevents them from doing it, because they have to first figure out who owns the actual show. You know what I'm saying? And like they still can't figure out who owns the rights to the show. Now, the show aired on Fox. And if Fox were to own it, then that means Disney technically owns it right now. And Disney is probably like the last company you want to reboot something. Like, I have nothing against Disney, but they really do ruin a lot of properties they buy. Like, I've never been the biggest Star Wars fan. I was more of a Star Trek guy, and a lot of Star Wars fans just don't like what Disney's doing. They don't like what Disney's doing to Doctor Who. I hate what they did to Goosebumps and everything. And so that's a possibility. Maybe Fox might own it. Then of course there is sci-fi. With sci-fi, it's more horror now, so they probably would never want to go back down that Sliders route. But honestly, I don't believe none of the networks own it. I think they just like air it the shows, because you can have a network or a different company make a show, but then air it on a completely different network. I think Sabrina the Teenage Witch was like that. It was a Paramount CBS I can't talk. Technically, it was a CBS Paramount type show, but they allowed it to air on ABC. And so, like, because when you watch Sliders and you watch, like, the actual show, or you have the DVDs, you will see the Universal logo pop up and everything. So most likely it's probably Universal or something like that. And Universal sucks right now because there's still, I don't know what's going on with the Fast and Furious movies, but they've allowed like Vin Diesel to like just bury that franchise into the ground. I think they're the ones who do Jurassic Park. I'm not sure. I'm not into the Jurassic Park franchise like I used to be. I just like the first two movies and that's it. Everything else I think sucks. They're the reason why we can't get a Hulk solo movie in the MCU, because they own like some type of rights to it. And they have a partnership with Disney. So this is why you see Mark Ruffalo's Hulk character act the silly way that he does, because like something that has to do with the rights issue, and he can't be exactly like the Hulk and some other kind of weird stuff. At least that's what fans believe, because still to this day, we all fans know is that Universal owns the rights. They won't do a solo Hulk movie, and the Hulk does not act like the Hulk. And everything. But he mentioned like, he takes pride in saying that, Sliders were the first ones to do the whole multiverse thing, and, and not the MCU, and like, and all this other stuff. And now would be the best time. Like I've been saying, man, now is the best time to make a Sliders reboot because a lot of people are more invested in the multiverse now than what they were back in the day. However, the problem with that is one, Marvel, they are kind of ones who gave a resurgence to the multiverse, but they've also ruined it. So when Marvel started doing that because they didn't want to do the time travel thing and they blended their time travel stuff into the multiverse, other like franchises and networks started talking about multiverse this, and then you just started seeing it pop up. But then the MCU just ruined it by not really like using it very well and using their humor to like just ruin it and stuff. And so that sucks. So a lot of people now aren't even talking about the multiverse. So if Sliders were to pop up, people will be all like, the casual fan will be all like, we're tired of the multiverse. Because that dude who played General Zod in like Man of Steel, they brought him back for the Flash movie. And like, he's all like, why is my character alive? He died in Man of Steel. They're all like, oh, it's the multiverse, man. And he just didn't understand it. And like he didn't even understand what that meant. So casual people just don't really care. Now, to Jerry's statement of Sliders being the first, technically that's kind of true and not true. Yes, their show was the first show to have that repeat week after week after week. So that part is true. However, Sliders were not the first to ever do the multiverse. I don't know who was the first in television, but I know Star Trek was one of the first people to do it back in the original series with the Mirror Universe. Then in Star Trek Next Generations, they did the episode Parallels, where you got more of a better understanding of the entire multiverse and different outcomes and stuff like that. So technically, Star Trek did it first. Now moving on to John, and man, like I never knew how comedic this man was and stuff. Like I remember one time I saw an interview with him and somebody asked him about Lord of the Rings and Sliders. And somebody asked him, didn't you used to be tall? Why you look so short now? And he didn't tell the reason why. He just said, simply put, like, I forget what the reason that he said. I think he might have said something like, I wear like really tall shoes or something like that. Like he likes to joke around a lot. But like, yeah, you can tell by his appearance, something is up with him. And it has made him appear shorter looking and everything. Cause he's 6'1" or 6 foot. And no, Clavant is 6 foot, and I think he's 6'1", and I forget how tall Jerry is. But like I read that he had knee surgery. So this is probably the reason why he walks the way he does now. And he's a little hunched over a little bit, which gives him that shorter appearance. So this is why if he comes back, man, I say protect this man at all costs. He's like 81 years old and everything. And 81 is always that scary time because a lot of people are passing away in their 80s and stuff. But like, it was really, I got some really interesting insight from him. Like when it came to science and everything, because we all know he got fired. And we all know he fought with the showrunners on the show around the third season because he hated that movie Monster of the Week formula, which everybody hated and everything. And but he was very vocal and everything. And I remember Jerry said one time, dude like slammed his fist like on like the table and everything. Like that's how mad he was. And he said this is rubbish and and so John was not happy and everything. And he was pissed and he let his voice be known. And David Pentapla or something like that, whatever his name was, just fired him and stuff. And and the insight I got that I never knew about was how much he appreciates science and stuff. because like he said, they was filming and it was running down an alley and some stranger just stopped him and told him how like he just hopes that the show respects science and everything because like he's like a teacher and at like I think at a university and he teaches a science class and wow, this is like fascinating. Like they would use sliders as like a stepping point of like a conversation and everything, and what went on in like that parallel world and how it relates to ours and the scientific nature and all this other stuff. That's really cool and everything. To think that like, this like science professor, a real one, was like so invested in a fictional television show that he used it as a speaking point for like his classes and stuff. And that's great, you know what I'm saying? Like that tells you just how important sliders were to people and stuff. And so because of that, John said he always wanted the science aspect of the show to be respected and everything. Because people need to learn and people need to be educated and everything and talked about how like, um America had like the greatest science, like, scientists of like the world and stuff like that and and a show like that helped make more people want to be invested in being a scientist and stuff. And I just thought that was great and why he wanted to preserve the integrity of the show and its science nature and everything instead of going off in that movie monster, the weak formula and everything. Because I remember people who are fans of Star Trek say the same thing. They got into science because of Star Trek. They joined the military because of Star Trek and everything. And it reminds me of Boy Meets World, Mr. Feeney. Like he has a lot of respect for like teachers and stuff. And at first he wasn't gonna do the show because he said that in sitcom they normally make fun of a teacher. But the creators assured him that, teachers gonna be respected on this show. And that's why he did it and stuff. And so I just always I found that like really insightful that like, one of the reasons why John was so big on science and why he fought so hard to preserve it on the show is because of that one guy he met and because he wants people to be educated and stuff. Because I remember on the DVD, the commentary, the first episode, the pilot episode, I think they brought in like a specialist to write on Quinn's chalkboard, the equation for sliding. And on the chalkboard, the networks are like, hold up now. This can't be too accurate because we don't want like, people watching this show and building like bombs in like their basements and stuff. So they had to like change it around and that to make it so accurate and But yeah, when you do watch this show, like in like maybe the first two seasons, whenever they do bring up something scientific, it would normally go over my head because I didn't know what the heck they was talking about. And then you would get glimpses of science like here and there in like season 3 when Quinn's talking about like, the dust particles and like space and like, stuff like that. And but then by season 4 when it was on the Sci-Fi Network, everything just sounded fictional. When they was on the Sci-Fi Network of all networks. But John had like his own thoughts of how you reboot like the show. Different from Clavant's. Clavant's takes place after season 5. His takes place after season 2, it appears. And it just erases everything from season 3 onward and everything. And so like basically he said, they're sliding, they'll bring in a couple of like younger people, those that the audience like, they'll keep, those they don't, they'll get rid of. At some point in time, his character will leave because he has other stuff to do. Because even he realizes he's not going to be able to do this forever, especially at 81 years old. Then he's all like, when Sabrina's tired of doing the show, she can leave. And like, and then Quinn becomes like the new Arturo of like the show. Only problem is that's kind of the direction the show already went into. Which shows you John didn't watch past his demise and everything. Because in season 4, Quinn does become the new professor and everything. And they did bring in a younger cast, and and Sabrina did leave, and and stuff like that. And then Jerry left, and then we was so yeah, that was kind of the path the show went to anyways. Now, I'm really sad that he didn't mention about the whole two Arturos on which one really slid. Like I wish he would have brought that up. There's a lot of stuff I wish they would have brought up that they didn't bring up. Like, what were their thoughts on the Maggie character? What were their thoughts on like season 5, and why they didn't have too many recurring characters do like the whole variant thing, and you know, little stuff like that. And I get they didn't want to speak for like Sabrina because she's not there, and I just wish they would have. I wish they would have talked about more. But then Jerry kept saying, "Man, this is like a depressing panel and everything." So they probably didn't want to keep going like too much into detail and stuff. And it would be great if this show to get rebooted in some kind of way, because now we're in a time where more people are familiar with the multiverse, and but the question is, how do you reboot this show? Because it's more difficult than it seems, because it's gonna alienate some people if you like reboot it in one way and not the other, because of the simple fact it lasted for 5 seasons. It's everything that happened is canon. There are some people who respect canon, you know what I'm saying? And if they were to say erase season 3, 4, and 5, that's gonna upset those people, you know what I'm saying? Because most people, they want this show to be rebooted after season 2. That way we can keep like the professor and Wade and Quinn and stuff like that, and can do away with like what's his name, Mallory, Diane, and like Colin and Maggie and stuff. But they were part of that show. Also, that would disrespect the celebrities who played those characters. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a Halloween situation. There are like 3 or at least 4 different continuities within that one franchise. And when I think Danielle didn't come back for the reboot series and stuff, she was really disappointed because she carried that series when Jamie Lee Curtis left and everything. And so you're gonna have those people who was all like, look, it might have not been great. Season 3 and season 5 like really irritated people, but canon is canon. And not to mention, these people went through a journey. There was ups, there were downs, there were deaths. People got lost in the vortex, unresolved answers, you know what I'm saying? Like that matters to them. It was a show that had depth. So if they would have just say, let's just reboot it from season 2 onward, that is really gonna irritate a lot of people because they spent their time and like hours and money watching this show and buying the DVDs and whatever streaming platform it might have been on, you know what I'm saying? But then, of course, if you were to reboot it after season 5, you have to resolve this whole Cro-Mag situation, which some people feel this is what ruined the show, the whole Cro-Mag thing. And, so if you were to reboot it, the hardcore fans are gonna see this and be all like, okay, look, we're tired of Cro-Mags. The casual fans are gonna be probably like, what the heck is this? Or hey, we like this action, you know what I'm saying? But Sliders were never about an action show. It was about the what if possibility, you know what I'm saying? So then it's kind of like, will casual fans really be into that? Because it's like, when you see stuff talks about the multiverse, it's already an established franchise. Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, you name it. These are people that are familiar with these characters in one way or another. So when they see a multiverse episode, it's just like another episode or movie to them. But the casual people have to be brought in, you know what I'm saying? And will the fan base actually watch? You know what I'm saying? Because times have changed, people's opinions have changed, and people's taste and stuff have changed. And there's one huge issue that Sliders is going to have to face that I've never brought up before on this particular channel. And it has to do with the anti-woke mob. These group of people that want you to hate on everything that is diverse, everything that has to do with messaging, anything that makes their race feel guilty and everything, like, or basically anything that does not cater to straight white men. And like these people voices are growing by the numbers for about the past 10 years or so, pretty much ever since that female Ghostbuster movie, but it kind of more originated with the rebooted Star Wars. I forget the name of it. Not A New Hope. Something Awakened. What was it? The Force Awakens. The moment they saw that stormtrooper take off his helmet and it was revealed to be a black dude. Ever since then, certain people and fandoms have went nuts. And the thing is, the majority of these people, and I'm not even joking, the majority of them are white men. There are, yes, females and other people of color. They are the ones who kind of like are the stragglers, who kind of like, oh, you can make YouTube money for making like hate videos and everything. Well, let me join and everything. But their numbers are increasing, and these people have huge subscribers, huge viewerships, and huge people who are brainwashed to them. And it goes beyond them complaining about, oh, well, I don't like when this established white character has been race bent or gender bent, or now this person has to be like bi or gay or whatever. Now it's to the point of whenever they see a woman on screen, they complain. Now when they see a black person on screen, oh, they really complain now. And anytime they see somebody, the LGBT on screen, they complain. And it doesn't matter if it's a new original character or whatever. It's like the moment they see a show that has like a black lead or just a black character in general, they complain. And they do this because of a couple of reasons. One, they're bigots. Two, they want YouTube money. They are like literally grifters and stuff. And it's like anything that has like a little bit of messaging in it, like, oh, you know, it's hard being a black person in the country we live in, or it's hard to be a woman, you know, in a world that's ruled by men, or blah, 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 blah. And they hear that and they go nuts, and they make like hundreds of videos a day because they have tons of subscribers, to where they harass these stars now online. Like, what was it? Not Lord of the Rings, but Game of Thrones. There's like that new show that's on like HBO Max. That's like a spinoff of it. Well, they had like a black character on the show. They went crazy just because there was a black character on the show, because for whatever reason, and they literally started to contact the actor on his social media and harass him. There was this woman, Moses Ingram, I think her name is, who was in Star Wars. She's black, and she was in that Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Granted, her acting's not the greatest, but they legit contacted this, and she showed proof. They contacted her, calling her the N-word, threatening to kill her and everything. And just because they did not want her in their Star Wars television show. Because, of course, when you watch Star Wars, it's predominantly white. There's always that one black person and stuff like that. And they literally harass these celebrities. And these celebrities are their mentality is starting to diminish because of that, because they're being harassed just because they look different than like what people are used to seeing on screen. So if these people who make these like hundreds of YouTube videos a day and brainwash people, and now they're getting into the mind space of like politics and everything, because now politicians are hearing about these YouTubers and making their political messaging about, oh, we gotta destroy the woke and everything like that, and blah 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 blah. And most people don't even know what the word woke even means because they use it in like the wrong manner and everything. And like the moment they was to see a Sliders episode, like say that world where women ruled and everything and men were like second class citizens, or a world where kids ruled and the adults were like second rate citizens. That world they went on where Rembrandt was taken to that camp because he was a black man, you know what I'm saying? What was it, California Reich and everything. The moment they would have see the episode The Breeders and like hear Rembrandt talk about, oh, we, you know, me and you, cue ball, we grew up completely different and everything. You see oppression and turn your head, and for me, I lived through that and everything. The moment they hear that, they're gonna go crazy in the head and make hundreds of videos a day. And I know what you're probably saying. Well, maybe they don't watch Sliders. They're nerds. Trust me, they probably watched it. Why? Because of Star Trek. These same people who make these YouTube videos and everything, who complain about the wokeness and messaging and, oh, everything's political now. These same people who are hardcore Star Trek fans said that new Star Trek has become political. Star Trek has always been political ever since the 1960s. Any Star Trek fan can tell you that. Then they complain about the diversity on Star Trek. Oh, there's too many blacks on this show. Why are there Indian people on this show? Why is there a gay person? Oh, there's too many female captains. If they go back and watch old Star Trek, they saw all those different races and genders on this show, because Star Trek has always been diverse and everything. The only thing Star Trek really didn't have was the LGBT, because they weren't allowed to do it. But they would slip it in every once in a while, and some of those episodes, it's like a compromise. In order to have an LGBT type episode, they had to kind of show the downfall of it, like Quark turning himself into a woman, or that non-binary episode where Riker fell in love with a non-binary person from like an alien race, and they don't want males or females on that planet. And this one person that Riker fell in love with wanted to be female. They threatened her, they erased her memories, and Riker felt like he ruined this person's life and everything, and blah blah. There was always a downside to the LGBT episodes and everything. And like, but Star Trek has always been diverse, and Star Trek has always been political. So for these people to say that it's never been diverse and it's never been political, they're lying, because they're trying to trick people so they can get more YouTube money, and so they can spread hate content around like the world and get people triggered. And these people have legit ruined the way people look at entertainment now. And it's gotten so bad that it's just become plain stupidity at this point, because they're reaching so far just to like outrage people and get people triggered. Like there's this one guy, and he was talking about Power Rangers, and I kid you not, he literally said, like, because there was this like YouTuber who used AI for their Power Ranger video, and he says AI slop is leftist. How is AI has anything to do with liberals or Democrats? Like, they're just reaching at this point. And there's this one woman who didn't used to be a grifter, but now she has. And like, she was talking about Tron. And all three Tron movies and their posters, the first two had like a guy reaching up into like the light beam, and then like a woman standing very close to him. Then in the third one, Tron Ares, there's like the guy Jared Leno's reaching for the beam, and Jeff Bridges is standing like no more than 5 feet away from him, and she said that's gay. Because now apparently, if two men stand next to each other, or even like a few feet from each other in the same room, that's gay now. It's like, how far can you reach? You know what I'm saying? And it's worse because now they're trying to up their game because they know that the moment they stop grifting and everything, their fan base is going to turn on them, which some people have. So there's this one dude who's a foreigner from another country to trigger like people and to get his base happy when he reviews things. He uses every slur he can think of to call somebody. He's calling people racial slurs. He's calling people misogynistic. A bunch of women, a bunch of like misogynistic slurs. He's using like just any kind of slur you can think of. And his fans are like, yes, like you give it to him and everything. It's just pure bigotry at this point. So it's kind of like, even if Sliders were to get rebooted, the moment one episode is an allegory of like something political or something diverse or something social issues, they're gonna lose their minds and go crazy. So I would love if Sliders were to ever get rebooted, but it's gonna be an uphill battle for multiple reasons. They gotta find out who owns the rights, and they might not want to give up the rights. Then they're gonna have to try to get the old cast completely back. And the three guys will come back, but with Sabrina living in Europe and doing the art thing, will she come back? And like, what about the other like cast members? Like, if they don't invite them back, that's gonna seem a little low down and everything. And I know like a lot of people hate Kari and everything, but in my opinion, she is very integral to Sliders. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was there. She filled in the gap. You know what I'm saying? So that would be kind of hard if they were to bring back the original four, which technically they should because they are the original four. But I'm gonna feel bad because she's gonna be left out. And plus, that woman's going through a hard time right now, like emotionally, and I think even financially at the point, you know what I'm saying, to it, because she hasn't acted in a long time either. And so, like, and I know she wants to get back in the swing of things and stuff, and this will probably also stop her from complaining a lot on social media. So anything to get her to stop doing that. But then what about Charlie and everything? Like, you know, Colin, like people like his character and everything. So if he doesn't come back, that's gonna alienate some of the fans, you know what I'm saying? And will the general audience even accept Sliders in the multiverse? And then what about all the like bigots and everything that's gonna complain about messaging and diversity and all this other crap and everything, you know? Like, there's that show, Welcome to Derry, the It spinoff and everything. And the moment I saw it had a diverse cast, oh, I already knew what was gonna happen. And as soon as the first trailer popped up, bam, there I saw it in the comment section. There's so many black people in this show. It looks woke. Blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, Lord Jesus, have mercy. Just say you hate black people and move on already. Like, stop trying to sugarcoat it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like these people are annoying. They're like making people's head hurts and stuff. So it's just gonna be hard to reboot Sliders. You could start fresh with a brand new cast, but then the original cast is going to be pissed off. And a lot of the original fans are going to be pissed off as well. It's going to be hard. Like, at this point in time, it's just going to be hard. Plus, you know, John does like a lot of movies and guest appearances and shows, so he's going to have to take time off from that. And plus, he's 80 something. And like I said before, get a stunt double. And the reason why, and I'm going to have to repeat myself again, the reason why I want them to have stunt doubles is because Part of the fun of watching sliders is watching them run around, and after they slide, watch them tumble and do somersaults on the ground. They can't do that now. Not even Sabrina and Jerry can do that right now because they're just up there in age, you know what I'm saying? And people needs hurt. And the last thing I want to see is a 72 and 81-year-old man running around out of breath like Patrick Stewart was in like Star Trek Picard, because it's just heartbreaking and you don't want them to have no type of like health problems or nothing. And I don't want to see somebody in their 70s and 80s tumbling on the ground. Get a stunt double for that, you know what I'm saying?